Hey guys, what's going on? Watomarmelon back again. And before we begin, I gotta remind you guys that I do now have a TCG Player link. So if you do buy anything from TCG Player, make sure to click that link in the description before you do buy. It supports the channel and it doesn't cost you anything. So we're gonna start off with Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever, out of Phantom Nightmare. This is a card that went down after release and has shot right up. I think there is some support that's anticipated for the card. It's a beautiful card, and it's one that I would love to have in my collection. It's just, given that it's expected to have some support, a lot of players are picking it up sooner rather than later. It's one that, as a collector, I'll keep my eye on, especially after the support drops. And then, maybe a couple months after that, if the deck isn't great, I might pick one of these things up. It's one that I would target, way, way, way below where it currently is. It's probably a $40 card as a collectible. At least that's where I think it is. Next up, we have Magicians of Bonds and Unity. It's a card that I just always show. This is one that fell out pretty significantly from initial prices, and then all of the Magicians of Bonds and Unity have been bought out. You can see that it is stepping back down a little bit. Core TCG has 2 listed at 65, but I'm not sure where it will end up. I think people, when it first came out, people were excited about the sort of gimmick of the different colored backgrounds, and then that became a little less interesting, and they switched to, I'm not super happy about the cards, especially after the second one released that was yellow. I think people didn't see the collecting all 4 of them as necessarily something they wanted to do, but now that the third has come out and the fourth final one will probably come out sometime soon, I think people are getting back into collecting it because they see it as a goal that they can actually accomplish in their collection. Additionally, there aren't any indications that these cards are going to be available in other rarities at the moment. I mean, 10 years from now, I'm sure they'll be available in common, basically. But right now, they seem like pretty exclusive collectible cards. Alright, next up we have Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon Ghost Rare out of Ghost from the Past 2. You can see that this one has actually gone up quite considerably. It's starting to, go back down a little bit, not really that significantly. Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon does not have other high rarity collectible printings. I've said it before, I think Ghost from the Past 2 got a lot of unnecessary hate. That being said, the set was printed beyond belief, and so I can't imagine that this could ever hold an insane amount of value, just given that there are so many of them out there. Nonetheless, it is increasing in price, and I think people do look at Blue Eyes Ultimate and they see it as a pretty interesting card. Next up, we've got another Ghost from the Past 2 one that really suffered at the hands of the market for a long time. This one peaked and then has gone down considerably since then, but you can see that in the last couple of months, it's starting to go back up, and I don't know if this is a dedicated buyout campaign, but it's back up to 60. You can see that it's pretty quickly 70. And after that, it goes up very, very quickly. And even given the small quantities, I think that this got a little disrespected as a collectible. I think people do like Red Eyes Black Dragon. It's the original art, and there aren't other super high rarity printings of the card. That seems to be sort of the common theme for the Ghost Rares that are doing well. Basically, they haven't been printed in Quarter Century Secret Rare. There aren't Starlight Rare versions, things like that. And so I think the Ghost Rares where that isn't the case, and I don't see, a huge wave of Red Eye support where this is going to be printed in Quarter Century Secret Rare. Obviously, I could be wrong, but it seems like people are starting to realize that even though there are a bunch of them, there aren't an unlimited amount as well. Next up, we have Exodia. Basically, this one's been on the decline. Its price has gone down considerably in the past year or so. It has sort of lost almost all of its value, losing almost half of its value in just that time. And when you look at sort of the index of some of these Starlight Rare things, if you treat it in the same way that one would look at a stock, basically the exorbitant number of reprints has hurt the value quite considerably for things like this. And so, with the recent OTS announced where they're going to have this in Ultimate, I can't imagine that this doesn't continue to lose value as it, continues to bottom out. You can see that it's available at $230 at the current moment. I don't see why that trend wouldn't continue down to something like 100, 150, even despite the scarcity of the product. You can see that other accompanying pieces, I think people are a little concerned now that the OTS version has been announced for the head, that these other pieces are also going to lose some of their value, given that they seem to be very intent on reprinting the head in both Quarter Century Secret and Ultimate now. We'll see where they end up. They might get another reprint in one of the sets. There's a new set announced that has Exodia on the cover or a version of it, and so I think people are afraid that these are going to get the Quarter Century Secret treatment, and I would be afraid as well. So you can look at the right leg, which is the most expensive, at 120, 100 for the right arm, left leg, or left arm, excuse me, is 89, and then left leg is the cheapest at, or pretty similar, at around 89.90. Next up, we have Book of Lunar Eclipse out of Lightning Overdrive, Starlight Rare, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. You can see how this one went up quite considerably, but there's just no play for this thing. And despite its beauty, it doesn't really hold any value. Tons of sellers lined up at 30. I don't see any reason why this would get bought in droves. You can see that there are some people picking up, play sets and more, but I think there are just too many of these things out there that people are trying to move. I don't see how this continues to climb in value unless it becomes very playable. Next up, at Maze of Millennia, we have Junk Warrior, this alternate art Quarter Century. I mean, this one went down quite considerably since the beginning. It's starting to have a little bit of a rebound here. We'll see where it ends up. There are tons of sellers. You can see Trading Card Elites has 48 copies at $17, and so I don't know how this thing climbs, but it's an interesting collectible, and so I'd imagine that, it's not super expensive right now, and I think it's a beautiful card. Next up, we have OTS Harpy's Feather Duster. Basically, interesting one. I think it looks quite good if you get a European print. $60, not a whole lot to say there. I can't imagine that it holds this price, just given how OTS copies have performed in recent memory, but I still think it's a beautiful one if you can get a Euro print. Next up, we have Enemy Controller, another really good-looking one in Euro. You can see that this one has come down quite a bit from its initial starting point at around 60. Harpy's Feather started quite a bit higher, and so I'd imagine that it would maintain a higher price point than 33, 34. But this is still an interesting one. We'll see where it ends up as well. It's one that I'm a little interested in, not going to lie. Next up, we have Trish Ulti. This is one that I've looked at a bit because I have one of these, but this went along its merry way and then just plummeted. It seems like there was some form of buyouts where in recent weeks it has climbed up a little bit. I think it's a really nice looking one, and so I understand why people would want it in their collection. I do think it's the best looking version of Trish, although the Starlight is quite nice. I know it's not the original DT Ultra, but I don't know. I hate DT and how it looks. I know that might be an unpopular opinion, but I think the Ulti and Starlight are the ways to go, and the Ulti is definitely the one that there's a more limited supply of. For the final three things we have here are just fun Ultis that I like. They're super cheap and unlim, and no one's buying these things. It's fun ones to highlight, given they have kind of cool art. The first one is Quakimeru Gulgalit. Okay, there we go. You can see if we sort by near mint that it's a $2.50 card. Basically, it's not super expensive. It is a fun one, but it's one of those cards that it has the old style ulti. It has an interesting art. I just like how the card looks, and it's very cheap and unlim. If you look at first edition, it's probably much more expensive. Yeah, you can see there's basically none of these out there. That's largely because Ancient Prophecy in first edition is impossible to find. Next up, we have Doom Kaiser, Dragon Assault Mode, ulti out of Crimson Crisis. Again, first edition is impossible to find, but if you just look at the near mint copies, it's a $5 card, basically. You can't go too wrong there. So I really like how this thing looks. It has a lot of interesting texture, and it's a pretty fun one, but, it doesn't have, any sales. It has 3 in basically the past month and a week. So it's a fun one. It's just one of those things. I just wanted to highlight some of the fun ultis that are not getting any love, but if you want to collect something for very cheap, it's not a bad option. Then finally, we have Big Tusk Mammoth. This is the OG out of Flaming Eternity. It's just a fun one. If we look at near mint copies, you can see that 745 isn't too cheap, but it's a lot of fun. I love the art. It's just so stupid to have a Big Tusk Mammoth. But it is, an OG out of that sort of hidden or lost era is what I call Soul of the Duelist through Flaming Eternity, in between sort of the main GX line and the original 11 sets ending with Ancient Sanctuary. So, it's an interesting one. Unlims are 750 basically, first edition. I was not expecting that. Holy, who's buying that? Where did this thing go? $53. I didn't know that. That's crazy. Let me see where it last sold in near mint. If it has any sales. Okay, there aren't any. I don't know who's buying out Big Tusk Mammoth. That's ridiculous. Why are there are 3 of these here, and 2 of them are from Troll and Toad, so they're probably not even near mint. That's kind of funny. So hopefully you guys did enjoy. Check out the affiliate link in the description below if you're buying anything. It's been your boy Watomarmelon, and peace out.